Go to the phones where Mike Irwin joins us, veteran reporter, Pig Trail Nation. Believe it's the first time he's on our show here. Hey, Mike, how you doing today? Thanks for coming on.
Hey, Phil, how are you?
Doing all right. Sun's out, day 2 of practice. I feel fairly confident that we're going to have a football season. So nice to actually have a practice to talk about, an actual, well, it's not a game, but, it's a lot more than we've had in the last few months. What was yesterday like for you?
Well, it was good because after so many people have been saying you'd never get to this point, there's little milestones. They opened back up, then they had to go to the walk-through practices and now on to this, and at least, we're a little closer. There's still some hurdles that have to be cleared, but it was nice to, have the coaches, have Sam Pittman on afterward and a couple of players and get some video from the practice. A little strange, different way to cover the team, but, hey, I'll take anything at this point.
So what was different for you from your perspective as a reporter from the way you've been able to cover practice before?
Well, you're not there. And
okay.
I don't guess I'm going to be there. Each media outlet that covers the Hogs on a daily basis is going to have one person there. So that's going to be a photographer, not me. So I'm going to have to, sort of do what I do based on what I see and people I talk to. And, I think because of the whole way this thing is coming down with COVID and everything, these practices are going to be a little more closed. You're going to know a little bit less than you might normally know. But again, you just adjust. I mean, you're just grateful at this point that there's a chance you could have a college football season.
And I think a lot of that has to do whether or not there is a season, about what it's like for the athletic departments in how they're able to keep their athletes from getting infected with students coming back to campus. And, there's been a lot of talk. Good luck. It's like good luck having trust in 18 to 22-year-olds to do that. But I'll say this, and athletes very well, certainly college athletes. They already, for the most part, are generally fairly dedicated and are good at blocking out some of the noise that distracts them from what's important, which at that point to them is the sport. So, do you feel confident trusting athletes to do the right thing to make sure that this infection rate stays low? Because they already have done this for the last few weeks. Like Arkansas's done so well, but these next 2-3 weeks are even more important.
Well, they've done it because they've been able to stay in a bubble and because largely the students haven't been around. That campus has been vacant. The athletic department's convinced these guys. They've even taken them out on social situations themselves, Top Golf, and giving them maps to trails and trying to get guys to go out and do hiking and walking and bicycle riding and all kinds of things. That all works well when there's no students. The temptation is going to be when you get around those students, even 1 or 2 people, get tempted out of that. And let's talk about where this could happen, because honestly, there have been videos tweeted out of students coming back to various campuses lined up on sidewalks without masks. This does not spread outdoors, even if you're in close contact. What you have to worry about, in my opinion, is not even bars and nightclubs, because most of these people can't stay open if they don't observe these safety features, mask and social distance. It's going to come in dorm rooms, sorority houses, fraternity houses, apartments where people get together and nobody's watching them and they just all want to have a good time and talk, and that's where you get it, close contact with somebody indoors over a period of 10 minutes or more. And so athletes have to avoid that. Now, Rakeem Boyd said yesterday after practice, we got to stay away from people, and we got to know where we can go and when we can't go, and wherever we go, we got to wear masks. So it's on them. And you're right, the students aren't going to observe it because students don't worry about it because it largely doesn't make them sick. They're not stupid. They've read the data. Their chances of getting seriously ill from COVID-19 are really low. So they just don't worry about it. And I don't think they stop and consider that they're going to spread it to other people. It's just the way it is.
Speaking of Mike Irwin here on Halftime, Mike, let's get into just some football talk because we've had practice yesterday. We've seen the different quotes come across. So I'm just curious from your perspective of what we know right now about this football team. of the newcomers, and probably we'll say Xavier Kelly, the freshman Blaine Toll, and the others, who do you think will make an immediate impact on this team this coming season?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, they said some good things about Toll yesterday and 3 or 4 other players. It's hard for me because I've done this for 44 years or whatever. And listening to what players say, coaches say after practice can get you in trouble. Because what I always tell people is the only way we're going to know is games. Because nobody's going to get up there and say, we were terrible in practice, we look awful, this is bad. They're just not going to say that. And if you're not there to personally see it, you don't know. What I do think happened was that it went pretty well. I don't think Sam Pittman would say, hey, we didn't have any balls on the ground. That's important, that you not have a lot of mistakes like that. A couple of the players talked about how driven they are by him. I think Rakeem Boyd said he's going to be out there leading us, making sure that we keep at it when we're tired. And I think everybody respects him. All these guys respect him to the point where he can do that, where they're not going to tune him out like they did Chad Morris. So there's some encouraging signs. I think the most exciting thing is they got a better quarterback room than they've had in a long time. You've got some experience there with Felipe Franks, but also the other quarterbacks, are back, and they have the benefit of last year. So KJ Jefferson, is going to look better this year, you got to believe. And you've got that really good running back, Rakeem Boyd in your backfield that you just have to feel good about. This is a more experienced team than a year ago. And, you have to go with that a little bit, but you just got to believe they're better coached because, honestly, I don't think they could be worse coached. And I go beyond Chad Morris. Those last 2 years under Brett Bielema, the staff was really questionable, some of those guys. Not all of them. But you had a football team that blew leads constantly on defense. You have a 24-point halftime lead, and all of a sudden you lose the game. These were kind of unprecedented things that we saw, but it's now going back 4 years. And people are shell-shocked. And to me, it's just time to get rid of all that, to start new. And the one thing, guys, I like about Georgia is you now have 6 weeks of preseason. So you could spend 3 or 4 weeks on just general preparation and still spend 2.5 weeks exclusively on Georgia. And there's nobody outside of Georgia's staff that knows Georgia's football team better than Sam Pittman. I've got to believe he's going to come up with a good game plan. And if you got 2 weeks to get these guys ready, and what did Bumper Poole say yesterday? He's going to play that Georgia fight song every day and just put it into our brains. A lot of people don't get that, what he meant by that. You have that thing pounded into your head for 6 weeks, you're going to be ready to play. You may not win, but you're going to be ready to go. You're going to be motivated.
You bring up the Georgia game and you bring up the experience aspect. I completely agree that this team will, on paper, and it just come from what we've seen with what Sam Pittman can do, this team will, without a doubt, at least hopefully look better on the field. Schedule comes out yesterday, and I think if it was a normal schedule where you had 8 conference games and 4 non-cons, you could make the case where this team theoretically should get maybe 4 or 5, maybe even push 6 wins this year. What's your maybe I guess a prediction for how this team could look faring against this schedule that came out yesterday?
I think they got to win the Mississippi State game 2. That's going to decide a lot. If they can go on the road and win that game, come back, beat Ole Miss, then you're at least in a position. You've gotten rid of that losing streak. You've proven that you can win some SEC games, and then you try to steal 1 or 2 from the remaining bunch. I mean, it gets bad after that open date. I mean, the only break in that 5-game stretch, I guess, is Missouri, and I don't know how much of a break that's going to be because we don't know how good Missouri's going to be, but we know those other teams are probably going to be pretty good. And so I think, guys, a lot of it is try to win some games, but at least be competitive in those other games. Fans know what to look for. They know they don't want to see quit. They don't want to see somebody scores, it's a close game in the second quarter, and then all of a sudden by halftime you're getting blown out. They don't want to see a rotating bunch of guys at quarterback, They want to see a quarterback established within the first couple of weeks, and then unless he gets hurt, he's the guy, and stay in there and play. Because that's not normal for this school. You go all the way back decades in my mind, I'm trying to remember a time. Arkansas has a history of whoever the starter is, he doesn't get hurt. Sometimes, like a Matt Jones, you're there for almost 4 years as a starter. You think about Brandon Allen, 3 years as a starter. Then his brother, 2 years as a starter. We don't have a history of these quarterback changes. And then all of a sudden, in a 2-year period, you just get hit over the head with this. It makes your head spin trying to wrap your head around the fact that they had 7 starting quarterbacks in 2 years. That's still crazy for me to think about.
It really is. It really is. Let me get a quick thought from you, Mike, before we let you go about Isaiah Joe's departure. And I guess it's not really a surprise with his decision here, but I do think that even with Isaiah Joe gone, this team potentially, like right now, you can't say it's a better team without him. We don't know what they look like in 6-7 months. I still think this team could be just as good without Isaiah Joe as they could have been with him. The depth that Muss has built, I think, will stand very tall in whatever this upcoming season looks like. And I want to get your thoughts on that.
I think where he really could have helped is in the non-conference period when you've got a lot of these rookies that are kind of trying to get their feet wet, figure it out. I really believe by conference play, you got so much talent on that team. I think it's going to be clicking. But a guy like Isaiah Joe, they don't have a lot of experience coming back. So he and Desi Stills could have kind of helped him, guide him through that non-conference period. So now these guys are going to be more on their own. But we know that Eric Musselman can coach. We've seen the way he approaches basketball games like a football coach. And he does a good job, and he's got talent. And look, what are the two biggest problems they had last year? No depth and no height. They've solved both of those problems. So if he won without those things, what's he going to do with them? So I'm pretty optimistic about basketball.
All right, Mike, it's great having you on this show for the first time. Definitely have to have you on again within the next few months while we play football. Let's do it again sometime.
Thanks, Mike.
Well, okay, we'll look forward to it.
Absolutely. Mike Irwin from Pig Trail Nation. Hey, you can get a great deal on an RV right now. Wheels RV in Springdale. They're located in Tawnytown, underneath the Tawnytown Water Tower, right off exit 72 off I-49. Wheels RV stocking more travel trailers than ever before. Top brands like Grand Design, Forest River Vibe, KZ Sportsman, and the Paradigm fifth wheel. That's the hottest new fifth wheel in the industry, and it's made by Alliance RV. Plus, Wheels RV is the only lifetime warranty dealer in Northwest Arkansas and the River Valley. They have factory-trained and certified technicians. They'll get your RV on the road. New paint and collision center for your RV repair needs. That's Wheels RV in Springdale.